Welcome to the fourth episode of the Breathe Easy podcast. Today is a very special episode. We're joined by founders that were part of our Gruha's Aspire Accelerator program, right? All operating across solving problems across sustainability as well as PropTech. We're joined by Rishi, founder of EarthFokus, Shayak, my co-founder at Breathe ESG, Tiger, founder of Ambiator, and AD, founder of Slice. And normally I sort of run through a bunch of intros, but I feel like for today's episode, it's best we let the founders actually introduce themselves as well as their company, and then we'll dive deeper. Rishi, we can start with you.
Hi, very nice to be here. EarthFokus is an IIT Madras incubated company. We work with organizations to help them reduce and manage their water consumption. The idea has been very simple with EarthFokus. We very quickly realized that people are using way more water than what they need to be using. And our mission is to cut down heat without compromising the user experience.
Shaq, why did you introduce us? Yeah.
All right. So, guys, Breathe ESG is the runner of the Breathe Easy podcast. And also, we are an enterprise SaaS company for sustainability management. We help corporates measure, report, analyze, and decarbonize their sustainability efforts. I'll keep it short because I want to know what Tiger does. So, Tiger, let's go.
Hi all, thanks for having us here. So we at Ambiator, we work on cooling without warming the planet. For many years, nearly 120 years, we've been stuck with an air conditioning technology. Unfortunately, no improvements have been made to it, or very minimal improvements have been made. So we're trying to disrupt that market by bringing in environmentally friendly air conditioning alternatives.
Edie.
Yeah, thanks guys for organizing this. Amazing to be here this morning. I represent Slice. Slice is a real estate investment platform. The problem we are solving is that a very small number of people in the world, around 60 million, own about 90% of the world's real estate, leaving about 2 billion income generating people outside this market. So 60 million out of 2 billion is approximately 3%. And that is really the problem, that the rest 97% remain underserved. So with Slice, we fractionalize the investment so that it becomes affordable, it's easy to transact, and it's extremely frictionless experience so that more and more people can participate in this rich wealth creation market.
Awesome. So I think that's really good for a round of introductions, right? I think being a startup founder myself and all of us, in very early stages of our journey, right? We faced our own fair bit of challenges, right? Number one, operating in the space that we operate in. And secondly, by virtue of being a founder, right? So just wanted to touch upon a couple of challenges, right? Or maybe 2 to 3 core challenges. It could be around fundraising. It could be around customer acquisition, right? Or even the internals of running a startup. If everyone could sort of, say what their top challenges are, maybe we can switch it around, start with AD this time and then move across.
Oh, sure. So our key challenge, what we faced is that we were solving a fairly complex and a well-established problem. And that had to be done in a proper legal and a regulatory structure. So firstly, to understand that why these challenges exist in real estate investments was critical. What's the legal solution to make sure that, we are able to solve them effectively? And then get the various regulatory approvals to make it a safe business where people feel comfortable investing their life savings. So the challenge, one of the key challenges was to figure all that out, but bigger challenge was how can we execute and deliver the last mile in a frictionless experience, just like, consumers are used to using some of the popular apps they have on their phones. So that was one of the key challenges, disrupt a very complex and antiquated market, package it in an extremely frictionless experience so that more and more consumers can have the pleasure of investing in real estate rather than the pain of investing in real estate.
Tiger, let's move on.
We're a very deep tech startup and very, very hardware-y. So it's really challenging when it comes to bringing a product that seems to be too good to be true. energy saving, uses no refrigerants, uses no compressor, so your energy bills are low, can run on solar. So all these things on the customer side, they look too good to be true, and getting them to experience it is the only way to to make them realize that there is science and it's not magic.
Yeah.
There are no black boxes. So that's one of the challenge. And the second thing is that we're in a very capital intensive industry.
Yeah.
So that is also a bigger challenge for us.
Yeah.
Because typically your traditional financing methods are very small ticket sizes.
Yeah.
Whereas we need
A lot of capital.
a lot of capital to be invested into to make things at
Yeah.
scale and make it accessible to the mass of people. So we're looking at 4 billion people who do not have access to cooling.
Yeah.
That's a large number. That's a big problem, and it's a warming planet.
Yeah.
So so these are things that we still battle with, and hopefully we'll find some solutions coming around the corner to make things easier.
Yeah. With you probably at the forefront.
We'll try.
A lot of billions being thrown around today already. My biggest challenge is working with Karan. No, I'm kidding. I think the biggest challenge that we faced at Breathe is definitely got to be convincing people that sustainability matters and it shouldn't be treated as a cost center or a checkbook compliance exercise, because that's the complete wrong approach to what is a much bigger problem that you just highlighted, Tiger. So I think, especially when it's coming from two guys who've not even crossed 30, and you got guys who worked longer than we have been alive, it's very difficult to make them realize that the planet is going to be almost uninhabitable, because 2050 is not easy to visualize for people, but the rate of change at which things are going and making them wake up, making them feel that urgency, that's something that Karan and I have had to kind of hone our skills with over the last 2 years.
I actually have something very similar to what Aster said. One of the initial challenges that we faced was our solution was very simple and was too good to be true. Nobody believed the fact that you could install a very small fixture and you could get your return on investment in 15 days, even if it was a huge conglomerate.
Yeah.
The idea was just too good to be true. And the bigger problem was when you talk about sustainability, right? The first thought process that comes to your mind is energy.
Yeah.
Water always takes a step back. And that's mainly because of its availability and the pricing that's usually there in India. I believe that we are not really a water abundant country, but still we do not price our water right. That kind of flows down to the customer where they don't usually take this very seriously.
Ironic we're seeing this in Bangalore.
So I was just about to say that all of this was this challenge maybe a couple of months before, or maybe even during the last year. But since the whole water crisis hit Bangalore, and Bangalore is a very significant city, right? It has its ripple effect in all the other parts of the country as well. Pune is waking up to the crisis right now. There's Mumbai that's upcoming in the line. So what were the initial challenges have slowly been kind of, uplifted by the Bangalore water crisis, for the good or bad. Hopefully this creates this flow of awareness, which in turn will, start making a bit more sense for water to be part of that huge sustainability bracket as well.
Rishi, I just want to stay there for a bit, because I think we have to tell all the viewers about how EarthFokus has actually saved billions, liters of water, right? And you guys have some crazy examples that I think people across India and the world need to know about.
Definitely. I think one of our best success stories, and the one that's close to our heart, comes from Bangalore in itself. We've had Amazon, which started off with one office in Bangalore, eventually had all of their offices across India implement our solutions. And we ended up getting on a call with them, and we realized that they were saving close to 41 million liters of water. Now, this 41 million liters, when you translate it to the amount of money that you would make out of it, or the amount of money that you would save, or you translate it to the amount of energy that you save, the load that goes down on STP, it becomes a very significant number. Yeah. And we tell this to almost all our customers, and this is something that we're not really proud about, most of our customers make their money before they pay us our money. We usually have a credit period of 30 to 45 days, and we notice that the ROI rate for most of our customers is somewhere around 15 to 20 days.
Yeah.
And I have sat in a bunch of meetings where the facility managers have told me, Rishi, this number is too good to be true. Can you just hike it up a little? Can you say 80 instead? Because it doesn't matter if you say 80 and we recover it in 15 days. And that has specifically been a challenge that comes back to our original point, right? When something is very simple and straightforward, people always want a sophisticated solution for our problems. Something simple and straightforward doesn't come off as the best solution. But unfortunately or fortunately, that's how most our problems need to be solved. Simple, straightforward solutions.
No, thanks for that. Right. Again, I'm just gonna switch gears and touch upon something that we're all associated with, which is PropTech. Right. Us. We're not really a PropTech company, but by association of our clientele, we sort of fall there. But you guys do primarily cater to the real estate industry, right? And wanted to touch on real estate in India specifically with like urbanization rising rapidly, right? And sort of mainly amongst tier 2, tier 3 cities, real estate developers getting organized. What is the role of PropTech, right? Specifically PropTech startups within this Indian ecosystem, right? And what is, if you had to size the market, right? How do you sort of go about doing that through all of your perspectives?
To be very honest, sizing the entire PropTech market becomes very difficult, especially given the dynamic changes in this landscape. To put that in perspective, let's take a water management or a water saving company, right? Similar to EarthFokus. PropTech is one of the most important places that we'd be working in. But before the Bangalore crisis, I would never expect any of the residential developers to consider water saving as one of the offering that they can have as part of the apartment. But now, post the crisis, there are residents of Bangalore who are asking for a signed warrant from the developer saying that please ensure me you will not have a water problem in the future. Now, this is something that the developer can never give in writing because he's just a mere human being. He can't predict what's going to happen in the future. But we believe that given certain solutions and giving certain sort of security around the whole water can go a very long way. And that's exactly why I said PropTech, I feel, is still not completely mature in India. With players like us, with us putting back to the society, or rather putting it back to the market, I think there is a potential increase by a good percentage, maybe over the coming years.
I'm going to toss it to the real estate.
I was just going to say that.
We're on the other side. I mean, of course, you guys are having a positive impact on the environment by both your products and you guys are these ESGs helping customers manage or monitor that positive impact. For us, we are trying to have, make real estate accessible to more people. So our impact comes from more empowerment of individuals.
Inclusivity.
Inclusivity. And, if you see real estate, and we move away from PropTech, real estate is evolving at a very slow pace. No matter what side you see, whether it is, the environment side or the construction material. And of course, construction material is the only area which scales up, right? What you see inside the building and outside the building. But anything which improves the underlying asset class or how it's available to people, that is pretty much the same for a few hundred years. In fact, buildings which were made 500 years ago stand better than the buildings which are made today. And that's a fact. Or even going back even further. So I don't know whether building material is actually improving or is just becoming more fancy, which is there. But coming to our transaction side, what we have realized is that the transaction of real estate was done the same way 500 years ago, like it is done today. And in modern society where everything has changed and continues to change every 5 or odd years or so, it's just a super obvious problem someone needs to target. You can't just have real estate transactions, record keeping. That's a big issue as well, in the same manner. And also, as the newer and the younger generation comes out, they are born in the world of mobile phones and smartphones with apps on their phone, and they want everything to be accessible there. And then they're like, the biggest thing in this world, which is real estate, it's really not accessible to me on the phone. I mean, you guys have phones and you have an app which does everything in the world, which entertains you, transports you, gets you food, and finance everything under the roof. But nobody has an app which does, say, investments or gives you access to that market in some shape or form.
I wanted to touch a little bit upon that, and also, I mean, lately the landscape, especially at least referring to the Indian real estate, has become more organized, also financially, right, with REITs coming in, right? So, wanted to also touch upon how much financial inclusivity does a REIT bring, right? And then how does Slice sort of highly differentiated from that?
That's a very good question. So, I mean, REITs were designed to bring access. They were originally, whenever they were incepted, I think 1980s is when they kicked off. But very soon, I believe in less than a decade, they became a extremely high-end product. So much so, if you look at the REIT deployment today, I believe around 95% of REITs are held by big funds, either sovereign funds, pension funds, or your other big companies, which I don't want to name. But these massive organizations have trillions of assets under management. So they have just devoured this whole market and consumed it. And if I ask around, I mean, last few days I've been in India, so I've been asking around.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone who owns a REIT? And I haven't met anyone who owns a REIT or knows anyone who owns a REIT. So therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
So what needs to be done is that now that's become a sort of a institutional play. The consumer is still left underserved. With Slice, what we do is we give you a direct ownership in the property. It's not a fund. So it's highly efficient, because in a REIT, what happens is, let's say there is $100 million, all of it doesn't get deployed, $80 million gets deployed. That $20 million is sitting and eating into your yield.
Yeah.
And also the other thing is that REITs are listed a lot of the times on public markets. So for some strange reason, they move up and down with the public markets, capital markets.
Yeah.
Whereas real estate is a well-known hedge
against
markets. Gold is a hedge against capital markets. So in that sense, it takes away the characteristics. The REITs take away the characteristic. It's not a securitized investment, which is stable. You don't get rental returns because now you're in the secondary market and you're not getting the same level of yields. It's capital inefficient. Whereas with Slice, you invest in a single property, you own 2%, 5%, along with 10, 20, 50, 100 other colleagues of yours. And you are enjoying all the benefits, which is a securitized and stable investment, full capital gains, and full rental income.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic of what's going to happen with PropTech. So I'm the eternal optimist over here, and I see a big future.
Very different from the rest of us.
I see a big future for India. See, we're at what 75 years of independence, and we're going to hit that 100-year mark very soon. And India obviously has something to prove to the rest of the world.
For sure.
And one of those areas is going to be that housing and the building sector. So that is something that's going to grow tremendously. And I see the future more in tier 2, 3 and village level.
Yeah.
That's where the action is going to happen. Cities are pretty much getting saturated. And you end up with satellite cities outside the primary cities, for ease of access, for ease of commute. But I know of a lot of people who are taking their enterprises outside of the city centers and moving them up into tier 2 and tier 3, because they realize the benefit of not making people migrate to a city.
But empowering them. Right?
By empowering them where they are within their comfort zone. So
Totally.
I think it's going to be very interesting next 20 to 30 years, where India develops into a superpower in itself, but with a focus on its people.
I totally agree with you, man. Like 75% of the India of 2050 is not yet built. That's PropTech, right?
Exactly.
That's literally it. Like the US has 9 cities with a population of over 1 million people. India already has more than that. Can you just imagine what it's going to grow, like the mobilization of and the urban mobility that's going to kind of take place. And you're right, what we call tier 1 now is what tier 3 will become in the future, because that's just the way it's going. So I'm also super bullish on, I don't know if prop tech is the right word, but maybe India is something that I'm super bullish on, because I think you're right, we do have a point.
At the end of the day, roti, kapda, makan, those three things will always be the things that go on in our mind. And so the makan part is the important part, and that becomes the basis. I wish we could have fractional ownership for residences in India, because it would save so many people a lot of capital that they would otherwise have to invest at a single shot or through banks and stuff like that. And I know for a fact that the next generation of architects are doing some amazing work on sustainability.
Mhm.
They think outside the box, they think outside the cylinder, they think outside the tub. They basically are changing that game completely, and I'm fascinated to see that these youngsters are able to pull off such imaginative stuff. And with that focus being that, we have one planet, we have our own typologies, we have our of buildings, we have our own crazy climate across the whole country. So we've got sea coast to snow, and we get sunrise to sunset. So we get everything in this one single country. And I think it'll, at some point of time, I think India will also become a non-tourist but a migrant destination for a lot of people.
For sure.
And I'm not talking about just the nearby countries, but people from far away who don't like the depressive 6-month no sun kind of a scenario. I see them moving out here, even though it's a little hot and sweaty.
We got Ambiator for that.
We got Ambiator for that, exactly.
I think to what Tiger said, India has all the first two things you mentioned.
Yeah.
So only the Makan part is there.
Right. and going to that, right? And the number of makans across India increasing all the way from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Yeah. It's undeniable that PropTech is a space that people should be focusing on. But do you think currently, right, it's a space that's ignored by institutional investors in India when you compare it to, for example, PropTech in the West, right, where in the US, for example, they're deploying about $61+ billion, right, of institutional investment in PropTech every year?
It goes back to what AD was mentioning a couple of minutes ago. Real estate and the housing situation has been exactly the same way for the last 100+ years. Nothing's changed much. The biggest problem I would say with the ignorance of PropTech coming from institutional investors have always been that they've always done this a particular way. When you go meet developers, when you go speak to them about what kind of changes you would want to their property, for them, there are multiple other parameters that come in before sustainability. Yeah. But given the current climate situation, given the current crisis that we are going through, things have taken a change for the positive.
Do you think it's because of the climate situation, or do you think it's because of regulatory pressure that these guys are?
See, regulatory pressure can only go up to a certain extent, right? Like, I am not a staunch believer on regulatory pressure, mainly because it only undermines the value of what you need to be doing. And India as a country, we've always been very, I would say, tacky with regulatory things.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a small example. The aerators, the fixtures that we manufacture, were made compulsory in Bangalore.
Yeah.
But only for us to realize that people started buying in not water-saving aerators, but just any aerators. And they were just fixing it because they just wanted to avoid the fine. The only thing they wanted to avoid was when the BWSSB comes to check, they don't want to be fined for 5,000 rupees.
No wonder
they didn't bother if it's a water-saving aerator or if it's a normal aerator.
Yeah.
And we've had places where the clients have told us that after installing this normal market wala aerator, they've actually consumed more water than what they were.
Oh God.
Imagine your fresh new aerator with no blockage, it's way more water than what you were using. So that's the problem with regulatory pressures, And I believe developers are very clear and very, smart on how to evade or rather do the bare minimum for this.
Yeah.
So the only word I relate with regulatory pressure is always the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And for all of us to thrive and for sustainability to thrive in India, bare minimum will never get us there. So that I feel has been the biggest problem for us.
Facts.
That is what leads to this ignorance of, the rising PropTech in India, especially compared to everything else that's happening across the world.
But for me, it's always very difficult to comprehend that real estate developer or any industry is putting purpose over profit at any point in time. Do you think a lot of this is also financially incentivized, right? With, for example, private equity players coming in and increasing the value of your assets by making them more sustainable. Right?
See, that's the change that we are currently going through, right? I believe there is an actual statistic that says in India, you get a 17% increased rental yield if in case you're having a sustainable practice adopted. Now, this is not necessary for the big players in the country right now.
Yeah.
These are necessary for your small players who are trying to get a name for themselves. These are the things that they will need to add on as a feature and offer it to the customer.
For brand.
But for the big players, for them, everything is established already.
Yeah.
So unless there is, I wouldn't say regulatory pressure, but let's say institutional pressure.
Yeah.
When the group decides to do this customary across all of their projects, that kind of drives a bigger change.
So it has to be a core function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also driven by consumer needs. I think there's a lack of appreciation or understanding for sustainability because if the consumers demand it, that the developers are going to give it instantly.
True. Yeah. That's very, very true.
Yeah. So I've been talking to quite a lot of people, and I've noticed that there is a lot more awareness now when it comes to sustainability. 5 years ago, it was talked about, but nobody used to act on it. But now there is a significant change because people are questioning.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen, I typically rage a war when I hear the words minimum efficiency standard, or they call it MEPS. And I go like, how can you say minimum efficiency standards? You set the bar high and let people achieve that or get close to that. You set a minimum and you say, hey, you know what? This is the height of your hurdle. You jump it. That's easy peasy. Anyone can do that. You raise that up, and now you're doing pole vaulting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where you want to set your standards. You know, if you set your standards low, you know what you get. So set your standards high. Aim for that. If you fall, it doesn't matter, but at least you're aiming for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key. Coming back to your question about institutional investments in India, in comparison to the US, I think we're very slow because we are a country where हम लोग चाय भी फूक के पीते हैं. So we know it's hot, right? But yet we'll blow on it as if it's going to get cold. It's not going to happen that way. So I think we are a little too slow on the uptake. We are not extreme risk takers.
Yeah.
Both sides. Whether it's an individual or it's an institution. We don't like to take risks. We'll ask 20 people before making up our mind. And I think that's what limits this level of institutional investment that is actually required out here. You need to take that risk.
Yeah.
Because so look, you guys are first generation entrepreneurs. You're like young and you're like doing something that if I name drop, it would be the big five that offer services like what you do.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they may have an army of 5,000 people, but your team can provide something that disrupts that. So it's your generation thinks very differently. You think way ahead of what happens. And I think that's where institutional investors should actually be taking the risk.
Yeah.
Because with that risk is also the reward. You know, small check sizes offered to you guys makes no sense. You need what you need to grow.
We all do.
Yeah, you need what you need to grow. Otherwise, you know, it's like setting up a mom and pop kind of a store and coming every morning and opening your shutter and sitting down there waiting for a customer to come in. That's not how you grow and scale, right?
Yeah, not at all.
I think all of us, everyone in this room is actually building for the world. While we've been talking about India on this podcast here and there, right? So I just wanted to make the viewers actually learn a little bit, especially from AD and Tiger, who are men of the world. They've really been all over the place. So I just wanted to touch upon that for a second, because all of us have had our different experiences, and there is a set of challenges that come when you're trying to generalize a product for the world, because every country is actually unique, right? But at a base human level, some of our needs are the same. So maybe we can start with the two of you, but just talk about what it's like building for the world, and any aspiring entrepreneurs watching this, right? You can also learn what you need to do to step out of that comfort zone that you're in, and what is important, what are the best practices that go into thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the challenges happens when you're building for a large audience is to try to figure out how you're going to service them, how you're going to communicate your product, and how you're going to package it. Like Tiger will have different issues in different parts of the world. We have our own different issues. So we built out this great app, which we believe can have mass appeal, but that's the transaction part of it. But how do we actually encourage users? And, the folks in the West versus the East look at real estate in a very different manner. For us in the East, an emerging market beyond India and Southeast Asia as well, real estate is a very emotional asset class.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, it's a very transactional asset class. So how you relate with the consumer in different parts of the world via your communication strategy, via your social channels and other outreach programs, becomes a extremely essential part. The underlying product can pretty much be the same. I mean, fine, in our case, we are a digital product, so you can bring in elements of local currency, local languages, but that really doesn't have that huge impact. It's all about understanding how your customer thinks in different parts of the world and how you're going to communicate your message effectively. So to give you an example, India is a key market for us from a customer point of view. And we looked at, how does somebody in Hyderabad versus Pune think differently? So rather than looking at an India strategy, we created 3 or 4 pockets we want to nurture. So that becomes extremely important to go, to double click on each of these territories and understand, and essentially have different strategies to engage with the users.
Well, so this is quite a loaded question. So when we started out with Ambiator, we made a very, very clear focus on what we are doing, and we said what we are doing is India first, because I'm Indian. I had that Swadesh moment, came back to India, and wanted to build for India, and that's what we're doing. But there is another market, which is the Global South. The Global South typically does not have access to cooling in a similar way that the Global North has. And the Global North predominantly doesn't need cooling; it needs warming, right? So I always put it this way, that if it gets warm in Canada, everyone will be out in their shorts. But if it gets hotter in India, we have a livelihood problem.
Yeah.
So what we do design and build is with the Global South in mind. We have about 148 countries that fit into that band. So that's a lot of space that we can potentially work in, but we might not want to do it ourselves. We might look at licensing our technology out to partners in other countries, and that's the only way to truly be sustainable. There's no point in making in India and then shipping it all the way around the world.
Yeah.
Brazil, for example.
Important point.
it's a no-brainer. You just move your technology over there, let somebody else build it.
You're breeding innovation as well, right?
Exactly. So you're sharing innovation across, and you're opening up access at multiple points simultaneously, and that gives that access and reach to all the people that really truly need these kind of solutions, right? So this is some of the thoughts that we play with. So we try to be not too egoistic about stuff. Sharing is caring, and I think that's the way to go forward. And we say collaborations and big words like that, but at the end of the day, it's got to be people for people.
Yeah. That actually brings me directly to my next point, right, which is collaborations, and where solving for a lot of similar problems, right, which leaves a lot of open room to technology integrations, partnerships, right. But again, there's not so much of sort of collaboration that we're currently seeing within this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right. For example, if you look at, let's say, the finance space, right, you have a lot of fintechs working in collaboration with NBFCs, with banks, right? That sort of ecosystem hasn't built out within the PropTech space, right? Off the top of my head, right, EarthFokus and Breathe, right, or Ambiator and Breathe itself have so many synergies in terms of catering to the same customer base, solving the same problems for them. How do you think we can develop an ecosystem, right? Or what are the best steps to take to develop an ecosystem? I think one thing through the Gruhas cohort itself is that we found out so much about each other, and there's no way I would have known you or Tiger or AD if you weren't, right? But how do you do this at a larger scale? And also, how do you go about integrating these technologies, right, to solve single problems?
I believe the solution is what you just mentioned. I would put it as coming together. This podcast where we are all gathered here, this is like a first step, or maybe our second step. Maybe our first step was meeting at Krihasan itself. Yeah. So the idea is to have these dialogues very often, have these conversations very often. And I'm sure we've had these very similar conversations, right? What has been a challenge for you? What is working for you? What's not working for you? When we have that at a group level, this becomes some sort of a thought process. It kind of becomes, I know about this group, there's something called a sustainability mafia that's being built up here, SaaS mafia. I'm sure they're doing a very good job. So let's start thinking about having these larger groups where we're able to exchange information, where we're able to exchange our challenges. And that, I think, eventually becomes a very attractive spot for the institutional guys as well. Yeah. Because that's been something that's lacking for the sustainability field here in India, right? When you compare how sustainability companies are looked at in the West and you take it to how they are looked at here, it's a stark difference. And that difference, I feel, is because of the lack of knowledge and lack of, I would say, some sort of people coming together. There's been a huge lack there. And once we start doing that, start having these dialogues, I think we'd be able to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you guys do with the BDSU podcast is definitely a way for a lot of people to get awareness about what we're doing. I've come across another group called the Climate Party, which is very active. And and they're all like-minded folks who are working for climate in some way or the other. Entrepreneurs, youngsters, interns, people who are dedicated to the mission. So these kind of groups are there, but then it ends up becoming like this elitist club, and we don't want that really to happen. We want this information to be made available to a lot more people. And the one thing is, I think what's also important is that we all need to be a lot more approachable.
Yeah.
So what happens is that people hesitate. Youngsters also, they hesitate. Should I ask this question? Should I go and talk to that person? I'm like, don't think, just go and do.
Yeah.
That's what starts a conversation. And guys, don't be shy. You can reach out to us. There's always something we can learn, and there's always something you can learn from our experiences. So it's always going to be a win-win situation for all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, one thing where we feel very strongly about is that the collaboration also must include the government. For the simple reason, and not only just to set the rules or the regulations, but also create a platform. Like, the government of India has been extremely successful in creating the UPI framework. It's had a huge, huge, unbelievable scaling impact on the whole Indian ecosystem, the market, how we operate. Now they're trying to do that with ONDC. And again, I'm pretty sure it's going to have a huge impact on it. Coming specifically to real estate transaction side, land records, if you see, and if you've ever visited where they're held, they're still piled up in those old files tied up with a shoelace. And, that needs to change. The government also needs to bring a lot of blockchain technology to modernize land records, to make it more transparent. And also on the sustainability side of things, they need to create some platforms and frameworks where people are able to then innovate faster. I don't think that in the modern era, there's been a better success than UPI. It's just unbelievable. And it only exists in India. And when you travel outside, like you go to Germany, below a certain value, you cannot use your card. And credit card, or debit card. And the access is not that easily available. When you go to the US, the card penetration is high. But that infrastructure of sending small amounts of capital or small amounts of money to each other just doesn't exist. UAE and Middle East is catching up to it now because UPI has expanded to, I think, 10 other countries, including UAE. So, we feel strongly that, on the transaction side, the government, all governments, not just government of India, need to accelerate their blockchain adoption so that, everybody knows what they own. It's transparent and, it's not ambiguous, because one of the largest challenges real estate has in India is that even if you own a piece of real estate for a very long time, you start to get suspicious that, do I actually even own it now? Because you have horror stories, right? The same piece of land getting sold 5 times. So we all have these experiences, either directly or once removed. So all those issues don't really need to exist, and blockchains are very capital efficient technology for governments to adopt and create that framework. So government must be a part in that collaboration journey.
Yeah.
No, that was super helpful.
I want to add something in there.
Yes.
So I want to add in the biggest enemy of sustainability. The biggest enemy of sustainability is L1 in the tender process. So that's got to change.
Yeah.
Tiger, why don't you tell the viewers what that means?
So, when somebody is making a building and they have to procure everything to make it happen, there is a tender process that happens, and it's farmed out to multiple institutions and companies that basically fill in all the specs and put in their prices out there. And what typically happens is that the lowest one is the one that gets the job. And you wouldn't want the lowest guy to build your bridge. You wouldn't want the lowest guy to build a skyscraper. And that's a serious problem. If we were to start making 55-story buildings and you just want to give it to the lowest bidder, I'm seriously very doubtful about the quality of materials, workmanship, equipment used, and so that is a process that definitely needs an overhaul. And people need to understand that you need to bring in a lot of other ones along with the L1.
Yeah.
So L1 may not be the primary criteria anymore. All the other ones need to be rated as the top priority before you come to the price. So,
do you also think that it's also a function of short-sightedness in terms of how we operate in regular corporates or as humans, right? Where your KPIs, right, that somebody in the procurement team or somebody in the sustainability team has is very short-term, right? So they're looking for that short-term benefit, but not really looking at the future impact, right? So, for example, Ambiator itself, right? You take compare them to traditional cooling systems, and you think about the impact that it has in the long run, as well as the financial benefit it has in the long run for an organization. It becomes harder for procurement teams to swallow because they want to save on costs immediately, right? And how do you solve for that?
Okay, we vet our customers, so we do
It's the other way around.
we like to work with good customers who pay for the values that we are offering. We haven't gone the retail route yet. So we're not taking product to market to a store near you. So we want our initial customers to be the ones who believe in what we are doing, and believe in our mission, that what we want to do for the rest of the world, at least our global south area. And if they align with our story, we sell them our product. So we don't sell our product to anyone right now and everyone. We're being selective, at least for the first 100 installs, because we would like to be in constant touch with them to get their feedback, to understand issues that they are facing. That becomes important to us, because then as we develop and we go to the mass market solutions that we want to bring in the next couple of years, that learning becomes very valuable as a lesson to build something that is an iPhone of air conditioners, if you want to put it that way, because that's like the most premium thing that you want, but at a Samsung price. So price is always going to be an issue, somewhere or the other, but there are ways to overcome that.
I would just like to add back to his previous point about L1. I feel L1 culture is what makes sustainability a fancy or a good to have rather than a necessary to have. Because anybody who's an L1, right, he's going to compare it only strictly based on costs.
He's going to cut corners.
Exactly. And that's what, and I've had this attitude from vendors usually, that they usually perceive sustainable solutions as a fancy solution. They say, oh no, my client is a normal client. He doesn't need sustainable solutions. What do you mean by that? Every single person needs a solution that's more sustainable. It's not an elitist solution. That drives that.
So it's like this, I'll buy an EV for myself, but hey, my employees, you come on that 150cc scooter. That's not the way we want our ecosystem to be. We want it to be equitable. We need everyone to have access to the best of the best. I mean, would you settle for second best?
No.
So everybody wants to be a winner. Everyone, I put it this way, everyone likes to be the hero of their story.
True.
Right? So be the hero, do the right thing. And I think that will get us a long way forward, and we'll start building things with human-centric activities.
Definitely. I think what's important is in that whole conversation as well, luckily we are not subject to it, so that's not a problem for us. We have different challenges. But I think the solution may not be, or may not, it may not be that easy to get out of the L1 mindset. It's been done for such a long time, and naturally everyone wants to conserve their resources, increase their share of profits. But the right solution for that is probably changing the dynamics of the specs. So rather than trying to remove the L1, it's all about ensuring that sustainability is included in the spec sheet. Because if once it is included in the spec sheet, you can still follow the L1 and have everyone happy that I still got the best deal possible. And the spec sheet is never going to change unless consumer behavior changes. So you can try as much to break down the corporate side of the system, but that's our uphill task, because corporates will think for their own benefits, but the consumer can lead that change.
Before we kind of start ending this podcast and stuff, I have one trick question for all of you, the three of you.
Did you say a trick question?
Yeah, this was not shared with anyone, nothing. who would you like to see next on the Breathe Easy podcast? And you have to help us get them on here.
Oh, good question. I'll have to think about it. Give me a few minutes.
Yeah.
We were talking about institutional investors, right?
Yeah.
It would be lovely to have someone from the market. I mean, that's the best thing to do, right? You have someone who caters to the market doing this podcast. I think the next one should be someone who's from the market, someone who can validate our previous discussions. Maybe we can understand why L1 is so important for them. Maybe we can understand what drives sustainability at their end. Maybe that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And if I'm supposed to call out to someone, I can, but you guys need to give me the name.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's do it this way. Get a builder. Get someone from the financial institution.
Got it.
Get someone from banking.
Yeah.
Put them together in the room, and then you grill them. That'll be fun.
That's a party.
I would say
That's pure PropTech.
I would say have a podcast with some government folks.
Yes.
All right.
Because I mean, those are great ideas, and I think it'll be interesting to hear what the investment ecosystem does and what the execution ecosystem does. But it'll be also interesting to hear that what's the policy thinking? Where is it sitting? And how much are we assuming that they are that far, or they may be 10 steps ahead or 10 steps behind? And that will give great insight to the folks in PropTech, like you guys, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of guesswork going on that why is the government or why is the policy like this or not like this? Maybe it's like this. And the good thing is that the government of India has started investing in initiatives long time ago. Maybe even 30 years, 40 years ago for different things. I mean, India has one of the better environmental rules, which then escalated to other areas as well. So having some government folks come and talk, what's their vision, what the government at a state level, at a national level is defining the vision will be very helpful as well. And it creates a template sort of for other PropTech firms to say that, okay, this is where we are at, this is what we can achieve now, and this is what we have to be patient and deal with the frustrations you guys are dealing with today.
Makes a lot of sense. That I would second that as well. Maybe get a builder and a government.
Separately.
Separately, definitely.
The government part should be just about policy. Let those folks draw the vision. What's your vision for India on sustainability? I think that would be a very interesting chat.
So I think the best way to do it is get the government folks separately and the builders, the financiers together.
You wanted next podcast, you got three podcasts.
Perfect.
Amazing.
On that note, also taking into account that we're running short on time, I just want to thank you all for actually taking the time out, right, and being such amazing guests. Really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
And it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for helping us in the morning.
It was fun.